Thank you, Brother John. My folks down in Jacksonville at the seminary, they're wondering why I would come here and teach a dry subject, like the Philistines of all people. But I told them we have a pastor up here as a Philistine himself. so I feel very, very much welcome to this church. It's always a very pleasant joy in my heart to come here to the Coventry Baptist Church. It's a church that I've always loved for many, many years. I still pray for this church every Sunday, for our teachers over here, and I just thank God for an opportunity to be here tonight. Now, the subject we have tonight is a strange subject, a subject perhaps you have known quite often in the Bible, but this is going to be a two-parter. We're going to start tonight on the subject of the Philistines, and then we'll end next Wednesday night on the Hittites. The Philistines and the Hittites in the Bible were the two worst enemies that Israel ever had. For all the years of the monarchy, and even when the monarchy divided, when 10 tribes went north and 2 stayed south, that was Benjamin and Judah, they still had to put up with all of the Philistines in that land. Now, we have here tonight some material. I want you to look at your material because we'll go through this real quickly before we turn and look at the scriptures tonight. Now, this cover right here was taken from an artist as it depicted about the Philistines of the Old Testament. The Philistines were one of the most warlike people that Israel had to face in all the history of Israel. These people learned how of a strange warfare by using and sharpening swords, which Israel never had. In fact, Israel had to go down in peaceful times to have their implements that they used for farming and tools sharpened by the Philistines. They were that far advanced in the Iron Age when they came into that part of the land. And they had this broad sword with a sharp end. They also were a group of people that learned how to be very adept with the bow and arrow. And as you notice here, their headdress reminds us of Indians, like an Indian headdress. And this is one of the strangest groups in the Holy Land. Now, where these mysterious people came from and how they left is any man's guess today. There's a lot of speculation on it. But when I go to the Bible, I can find the Bible has more to say of the where and whence of the Philistines than any historical records ever been found in archaeological archives or written by man. As you know, the Bible is such a correct record on history. You'll never find a greater record in history of mankind than the Bible. A lot of things we have today began with the Greek and Roman Empire. But we find that Israel had the most exact, precise examples of all the history of mankind. We thank God for that. Now, on page number 2, you see a replica here of that same thing in black and white. But if you notice down here, one of their main gods they worship was just God here that would slay the dragon. And of course, we know St. George of England is supposed to slay, he slew a dragon likewise. But here you find, now these things were copied from old Stele and stones that they found over there in Israel of the Philistine people. Now, this second page here is very interesting. I listed here for you folks all the enemies of Israel. Now, we think sometimes we have it bad. Now, we just had to fight here in our country, the English at one time. Then we had our horrible Civil War. But yet again, when you think about Israel, I've listed here 27 different groups of people or nations that went against Israel through the years. Now, this is really eye-opening as far as I'm concerned. We're starting all the way back with the Canaanites of the land, the Egyptians, the Amalekites, the Edomites, the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, Girgashites, the Perizzites, Hittites, Hivites, and the Midianites, Horites, Amorites, Jebusites, Moabites, the Philistines, and Syrians, the Syrians and Assyria, and Persians and Greeks and Romans, the Mohammedans, which is Muslims, the Crusades, the Catholic Church, the Arabians, and Germany, and Palestinians today. How'd you like to have a record, have a fight in these many groups of people through your own history? Well, you can know one thing, God had to be with the nation of Israel for that to ever occur. That's why we find so many miracles taking place. God will say, go against you. You're outnumbered 25-1, but I'll take care of the situation. Many times they had God battling for the armies of Israel, because Israel as you know, in Egypt, they never learned warfare whatsoever when they were down there in Egypt. They had to learn it themselves by meeting the enemy face to face in the Holy Land. This next piece of material here is a map here of the excavated sites of Palestine. This shows the major excavations that have been in Israel, as well as many of these are yet in progress. I've circled some of them. You see the ones are circled. Those are the 5 main cities of the Philistines. And yet today we have Israel still digging in many of these spots. They cannot get down into Gaza because Gaza is built over the old town of Gaza. And of course you can't tear down a city just to find a few rocks and stones. That'd be unfair to the populace to do something like that. But all these things are there under the ground. And so the archaeologists have certainly contributed much to our knowledge regarding the Philistine people. And if you notice here, all these little red dots shows what's going on. When I look here, now if you see the Sea of Galilee up there, Tiberias up there on the right-hand corner. As you follow down, you see a town called Beth Alpha. That's an old recovered synagogue of the 3rd century that's been uncovered by the archaeologists. Beth Shan means a house. Beth in Hebrew is house, and Shan is son. And so this is a house of the sun. And guess who owned that place? The Philistines. The Canaanites were there first, of course, but the Philistines took over that city prior to the days of David. Then you come on down here, you see Tel El Farah, which many things have been found by the Philistines. You move further down to Jericho and to Gibeah, Qumran. Now come down to Beth Hakram. You have Beth Zur. Now Jerusalem's not on this map because they haven't had a real start of archaeology in Jerusalem, you see, because of the Arab situation there. But if you notice right here, those 5 circles are marked here, that's the Confederacy. The Confederacy of 5 major cities that belong to the Philistine people. Now, of course, this is an old map here, but it does help you. Now, when we talk about this, say if you want to refer back to your map, if I mention these cities, and look them up. Now, the next few pages, you're going to have to kind of look these things over yourself in your Bibles, especially when you come to David's life and so on. And right here, the first thing, this shows the possible Philistine migrations. They do not know who the sea people were. Ramses II had to fight them too. They came from the sea in ships. They went down into the delta and a terrible war broke out, and Ramses had a terrible battle with them. And when Ramses chased them out, they just moved around and settled in Palestine and stayed right there to the land that we know as Israel today. But here's some people feel where they came from. Now, as I said before, they do not know, the origin of the people. They know they learned. When they went to Crete, they probably learned in Crete how to make pottery. If that arrow points to Turkey, if they went up there, they met the Hittites, they learned how to use iron, and then they took the route from Turkey, little dotted lines, to Palestine, or if they bypassed Turkey, they would have gone to Crete and then to Cyprus. Caphtor in the Bible is Crete. If you ever see that C-A-P-H-T-O-R, Caphtor is Crete. You know, the Israel had different names, just like they had Noph, N-O-P-H in the Bible, that was Memphis in Egypt, and No was Thebes. If you ever see Noph or No, N-O, that's the 2 Israel Hebrew names for those 2 main cities in Egypt. Now down below here, you see a very interesting map where archaeologists feel, if they've been digging on the excavations, some of the trails of what happened here when the Philistines came to the land and their expansion. At first, they controlled the land. You see Tel Kassel, right there by the Mediterranean, Tel Kassel. I have seen there, they have an old Philistine temple of worship there that's been uncovered. You come down to Joppa. Now, Tel Kassel today is Tel Aviv. And then you come down to Joppa. You move down and you see all the dark gray area. That is how they're expanding across towards Israel, these warlike people. Down below here you see Ekron, of course, Timnah, Ashdod, Ashkelon, and all these various places. Excuse me. Now on the next map here, this here, some of the main battles recorded in your Bible, and if you're ever going to teach it, or as a teacher you come to these battles, you can use these maps to show how the battle waged between Israel. These are the battles, main battles that Israel had with the Philistines, with that warlike people. Over here to the left, there's the Valley of Sorek. Down to the Valley of Sorek, of course, this is where Samson, the whole story of Samson took place. All the way here between those towns of Estial, all the way through here, back over here to Timnah and Ekron. This is where Delilah and Samson's hair and all that all took place all throughout this territory here. And then you move over to the left, you find here where Samson carried off the gates of Gaza. Remember how he got so mad he went down there, grabbed the gates and shook them? He was so strong, and he carried them all the way back to his hometown. And of course, this made the Philistines pretty mad. Then down over here, the next map here is the Battle of Ebenezer and the destruction of Shiloh. We call it Shiloh, but it's Shiloh in Hebrew. Now, why was Shiloh so important? Well, as you know, when the Ark of the Covenant was placed first at Gilgal, after Gilgal and the Battle of Jericho and Ai, they moved it over to Shiloh. And there at Shiloh is where that tabernacle stayed for over 150 years. The old tabernacle that was made down there in the Negev and down there in Egypt was brought there to that place. Now this is where Eli the priest was there. And the story of Eli took place right there in Samuel, starting the boy Samuel and so on. But it was this place right here at Shiloh is where the Philistines came across in the Battle of Ebenezer, excuse me, all right down to Shiloh and captured the ark and took the ark away from Israel. Another very interesting place. Now here's the captive return of the ark of the Lord. You can follow how they went. They took the Shiloh, the ark, went to Aphek, went across. They put it in Ashdod. Ashdod, you wonder what happened there. The big statue fell down because they couldn't understand why the ark was there. They said there's something magic about this ark, because our statues are falling down. You know the story. Then they moved it up here to Ekron. Same thing happened here. A plague, a bubonic plague happened to the people. They went down here to Beth Shemesh. And the same thing happened. So finally they had to take the ark from Beth Shemesh and give it to Israel there. And Israel carried to Kiriath Jearim. Now that is the old name of Hebron that we have in the Bible. This is the old New Testament name called Kiriath Jearim. That's all Hebron right there. All right? I'm giving all this to give you kind of a background of what these people did and so on before we look to the scripture, you see. Now, this 4 more battles here in the Bible. The battle of Michmash, David's early wanderings, the pursuit of the Philistines, and the battle on Mount Gilboa. Now, Mount Gilboa here was the most tragic battle that they ever fought with the Philistines. What do you think happened there? Anyone have any idea? That's right. That's where Saul committed suicide. Now, he was a king. He had no business going to battle. Most kings, they stayed home. They stayed home. And the generals are always in a tent way back in the lines, you know, and the infantrymen are doing all the battle and fighting, you see. But Saul is where Saul and Jonathan were killed by the Philistines. Now you can see how wicked these people were that killed even the kings of Israel. This next page here shows the conquest of Jebus. That's Jerusalem. The conquest of the Jebusites by the Philistines. Now sometimes people say Philistine and Philistin and Philistine. Anyone's correct. I hear archaeologists and Jews talking about all 3 pronunciations. But anyway, you find here how David smote the Philistines, and David is the first king that came along to subdue the Philistines. After that, the Philistines became very weak, weaker and weaker, and lo and behold, they disappeared. So people don't know where they came from, really, and they don't know where they went. Most people seem to think they just amalgamated with the Syrians or the Babylonians that came down. And there's a lot of conjecture along that line. but the archaeologists are still digging. The next few pages show some of the pottery that's been found that the Philistines have made. They're copied this in Mycenaean pottery and Cretan pottery from the islands. We can almost trace them back to some of the islands by pottery, by the pottery. They made very beautiful pottery, you see right here. And all this has been found by the archaeologists in those 4 cities where they've been doing some excavation work, you see. Now, if you notice right here on this large pottery here, now you see how one side is painted? One side is painted, the other side is not. Now, this is the way the archaeologists will always make a picture of a pottery that's found. On the outside is always the design work, how it looks on the outside is always on here. Then this here will usually tell you about the thickness of the pottery, or anything would be placed on the inside. That's how the archaeologists would do this. I've seen this on digs myself where I've been to, at Caesarea and places like that. And now pottery is very, very important. You might wonder, well, why? Well, the thing is, Sir Flinders Petrie, he was a very important, very historic and important archaeologist from Great Britain. And the Society there of Archaeology granted him all the money he wanted to go to the field of work. He began his work, first of all, down in Tel Amarna in Egypt, and he moved back to Tel El-Hissi and Tel Afara in Israel. And he's the one that discovered, when we went to those 3 places, he began to look at all his writings and material, and he discovered one thing, that's called stratigraphy. He found out that by strata, when you're digging down, you go by strata, all the way down, you find when you come through different areas where other people built on top, you know, the same kind of pottery was found. On this level, 100 years went by, this type came in. Later on, a different kind of pottery was formed and painted. And see, the Mycenaeans were so great in pottery, people sold this and traded these things all over the then known world. Just like we had. Look where we've come. Look where we've come, how our pot, how we came here. The people made stone pots and things when they first came here, and different things. And look what we've been through today. Now we're in the plastic age now, Tupperware. And look how our pottery has changed, you see, coming from China, and China dishes and so on, you see. And so he was the father of that. And this is still true today. When archaeologists will dig, they watch for that. For instance, at Tel Megiddo and Tel Hetzor, I have seen there 22 different generations of people and nations have built their city on top of each other. We get the word tel, which means a hill. It's T-E-L in the Arabic, and this is T-L in Hebrew. But when a nation would come, say this was a bedrock, they'd build a little village, storms would come by, or the deserted, or warfare, this would be crushed down. Another person would come, they'd use some of this stuff, but they'd get other stuff and build their city on top of that. You follow me now? And that went on for 22 generations over a period of 4,000 years. And because of that, you have 22 different generations or nations piled on top of each other. And so that's important. Look at this next page. Look all this beautiful pottery here that's been found. This pottery here, well, some of this, hey, listen, you're talking about a lot of money tied up in these trying to buy these things. Well, these things are in museums around the world, too. If you've ever been to London and places like that, you've seen this. Now, you're going to read this on your homework, the next 3 pages. This should be your homework. Because, now these next 3 pages, I want you to read it. We don't have time tonight. I want you to do this as your homework. But the thing is, this is the digger and archaeologists of what they found. But the major thing is this here. You are looking here of a real Philistine. There's your Philistine right there. And they've been dug up by the hundreds over there. There's you're looking at a Philistine. He doesn't have his flesh on him. But this is one of those rascals that came out of the Mediterranean somewhere. And so here we find these skeletons quite often in all the digs over there in Israel, I'll tell you. Now this is found at Ashkelon. I've been to Ashkelon several times and with archaeologists there, and we went down into a pit there, and we found where the new gate's being found, and that's been rebuilt to show how the Philistines had a big gate, and their temple faced the sea, right down by the Mediterranean, Ashkelon. You see, when you come down the coast, you come to Ashdod, and you come to Ashkelon, and so on, the main three cities. Gath and Ekron's on the inside, 15, 20 miles inward, you see. But you read this for your homework, all right? Now, let's close the material for just right now. Now, the next few pages, we have the Hittites. We're going to try to get into the study about the Hittites next week, all right? I hope my time is doing all right. Okay. Now, let's go to the Word of God. I love the Bible, I'll tell you. Archaeology is good, but boys, I need my Bible to tell archaeologists what to do. I'll tell you. Well, again, among all the ancient nations that played a major part in the early history of Israel, none is more important, of course, than the Philistine people. They are the greatest threat to the national stability of the young Israel when they got there in the land. That's an enemy they had to face. Now here, if you recall, when Israel left the land, God says, don't go north, because the Amalekites and the Phoenicians, all that crowd was there. So that's why God sent them down to Negev to miss the warfare, so they got over into the land itself, you see. But anyway, the history of Israel, as it relates to his contacts with the Philistines, is an expression of God's constant vindication of his people over all odds. Now, some of Israel's greatest men were necessarily raised up to confront those Philistines. And here they are. Number one, Samson. Put that in your notes. Here's the big four that had to really fight it and slug it out with the Philistines. Samson, and Samuel, and Saul, and David. That's the four. Of course, any child could tell you something about Goliath, Samson and Goliath, the Philistine. That's a story we all know by memory, perhaps, you see. And then, of course, Samuel got involved with them over the ark, about the ark, you see. And then Saul, he fought them and kept on fighting war after war till they met in final conflict on Mount Gilboa in the Jezreel Valley, right there near Galilee. And then, of course, David, when David came to the throne, the fighter, he took them all on. And David was the one that slaughtered those Philistines from all the way from the Galilee all the way down to the Negev. Well, it's all in the Bible, in Kings and Samuel. You'll find where David was so involved. What is the historical record? Well, as I mentioned, they are very mysterious people who may have come even from Greece, some people say. In Egypt, there are several markings on several temple walls of Karnak that refer to them as sea peoples. You know, one of my pictures I had here in your material, on the bottom of one of those, you'll see a lot of markings of these Philistines. Now, I saw that when I went to Karnak. I went through all the temple of Karnak to Ramessuan and Luxor and Karnak both. And I saw that all carved on the wall, these Philistines. I took a picture of that, and I found this one in the book, of course. That's a sharp one. I also find the initials of Alexander the Great was there. He carved initials. And some of the great warriors of the past carved their initials when they went through to Egypt. But those things, the Philistines, are very, very important. When I saw that, the guide says, these are the sea people. Well, that's what the Egyptians called them, the sea peoples. They migrated there, there's no doubt about that. But shortly, when they arrived in the Holy Land, some of the moderns say that Israel was there first, and then the Philistines came in. That's wrong. The archaeologists have proved that the sea people came there 40 years before Israel got into the land. So I'll show you the Bible later on, where God even says so. They came to the land 40 years before even Israel got into the land. All this is in the Bible, as we shall see. All right? Now, as they entered the land after Israel was there, they controlled territory from Joppa to the desert region, some 50 miles south to Gaza. Let's list down now the 5 main cities. Here they are. Ashdod, A-S-H-D-O-D, Ashkelon, that's at A-S-K-E, Ashkelon, and then Gaza, and Ekron, and Gath. Now, Ashdod was a northern one on the sea there. That, too, was a very important city because I think it's in Isaiah, chapter 12 or 14, verse 1, where it mentions the name of Sargon. Sargon is only mentioned once in the Bible. Now, he was a Assyrian, only mentioned once in the Bible, and the critics always said no Sargon ever existed. They said that for years, until the archaeologists recently were running a railroad track down there to go down in towards Gaza, and when they got there, they dug down to the ground, and it caved in, and they had to stop the railroad. The railroad had to go like this now, because the archaeologists got down to dig, and lo and behold, they found an old temple underground, and it was dedicated by Sargon, who was there at that city. So there's the name. Once again, the spade of the archaeologists was turned over to show how the Bible is true. The only time Sargon's mentioned in the Bible, that's Ashdod. Now, Ashkelon, here at Ashkelon is where you find all this pottery stuff. Now, Gaza, I mentioned about Gaza, we can't dig there. Ekron is on the 15, 20 miles inland, and not too far from there is Gath, as you notice on the Bible. Gath is very important because of the Samson thing. Now, if you want to believe this, and I do too, all these cities were powerful, but you know, Ekron seemed like it was the capital of the Confederacy, at Ekron. Later, these people advanced to Jezreel Valley and lived near Bethshan. Scriptures tell us they came out from Captor through Mizraim, the sons of Ham. Let's go now to 1 Chronicles 1:12. 1 Chronicles 1:12. I'll try to find this myself. Just a moment. Okay, 1:12. Now, you see here, it mentions here about Cush begat Nimrod. He became a mighty man. And Mizraim. Do you know Mizraim was the one that started the Egyptian people? That's right. That's the main person that started Egypt. Begat Ludim, Anamin, Lahahim, and Naphtuhim, and Pasbrusim, and Casluim, of whom came the what? Philistines. There it is. And so here we have an early chronicle about the Philistines. And these people that deny the Bible said they weren't in the land until Israel got there. Look at here, would you? All right, now, let's look also to Amos 4. Correction, Amos 9:7. Okay. Amos 9:7. Over in Hebrews 9, Amos 9:7. Are ye not the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel, saith the Lord? Have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Captor? Aha. Here God says they came from Captor. See what I'm talking about? How God knows where these people came from. And the Syrians from Kir. All right. That'll just settle the thing. Now, their migration, as I said, is uncertain, but it's quite possible they stopped at Crete and called at Captor in the Old Testament. Now, the central shrine to Dagon at Ashdod was the rallying point of the Philistine Confederacy. Now, let's go to Genesis. We want to get over the book of Genesis. Let's get a nice background here. Over the book of Genesis. Let's start there in Genesis. Well, let's see. Let's go back over to the one I have here. Now, I have in my Bible marked here. Let's go to Genesis. Let's go to Genesis 21, all right? Genesis 21. In Genesis 21, we'll look at verse 32. 21:32. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba with Abimelech. Abimelech, that's a name that means the Führer is our God, rose up, and Phicol, the chief captain of the host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. You see, when Abraham reached there, the Philistines were there already in that land. Now if we go over to chapter 26 in Genesis, in Genesis 26, and let's look at verse 1. Excuse me. And there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham, and Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. Now if you notice right here begins the story here with Abimelech and the dispute over the land, and then Abraham with the wells. Now, while Abraham was there, remember when Sarah died? He purchased the cave of Machpelah. Machpelah in Hebrew and Arabic both means double cave. Machpelah, it was a cave called Machpelah there in the land of the Philistines. And there we find where Abraham made a deal and said, no, I will give you, no, you keep your money. No, I'll give him, that's how you do that over there, but you better go through the deal. And so that's why Abraham gave the money right away to go ahead and settle things, and he bought that cave to bury Sarah in. The first time I was there, I was amazed when I went to Machpelah. We went into this big, were you with us on that trip, John? No, we went into the cave there, and they have a cave. The cave is down underneath the building, and there's a hole about as large as this thing here, and they have a chain that drops all the way down at least about 40 feet underground, and there's a light burning on there. To put a light there, and they say this is a cave down there where Sarah is buried, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Leah, they're all buried down there in that place. And it's true. There's nothing false about that. But there's a sign that says, anyone entering this cave will never come out alive. That's a big sign in Arabic and English and Hebrew. and so I'm not going to go down, that's for sure. but on top they have what they call the cenotaph. A cenotaph is a marked grave over the place, you see. And the Arabs have one side to pray, and the Jews have one side to pray. Now we can pick either one. Unfortunately, we went on the side of the Arabs at times because we had Arab guys. Now the other times out there we had Jewish guys. But the people that come there, you hear the Muslims praying, the Jews praying, because they all go back to who? Ishmael and Isaac. And this is why both claim all those as their distant relatives, you see. Now Machpelah is a very, very important place, but now that is the most wicked town. The toughest Arabs, even tougher than ISIS, and the toughest Arabs in the world live right down there at Hebron. In fact, a lot of guys will not even take their tour groups there. We went there one time, the guy said, don't get off the bus, and they don't even look at the people. They look at you at the bus, they look mean all the time. There's always rock throwing at people down there. And it's there in 1929 where the Arabs killed every Jew in that city, killed every Jew. A massacre in 1929. It's a tough place today. And so I believe myself, if we continue next week, we have so many more scriptures to go through here, how Israel had to fight these battles and so on. It's a very important thing. When we get to the Hittites, we're going to find that not only they had to fight the Philistines, but they had to fight the Hittites. And so with this, we'll close our lecture for now. And pray. More questions? All right. Any questions at this time? I'm sure just about.
Philistines survived in any other race at this point, or were they extinct?
During the time there?
Well, do they have any ancestors today?
No, they can't find that, Joel. That's why it's such a disappearance, they can't find it at all. Now, they can't trace some of the Lebanese people to the Phoenicians. Do you know the Lebanese are not Arabs? They're Lebanese. They do not claim to be Arabs, although they talk Arabic. But they come from Phoenicia. And so they feel that one of these days they're going to, you see, they don't know how the Philistines even talk, what kind of vocalness they had. And also they don't know anything too much about their writing. They never left too much writing back. Just a little spatter here and there on some stelae. What they did, they were vultures to copy people. They copied a little bit of the Midianites, a little bit of Israel, a little bit, and they put the alphabet together, and their alphabet was so terrible, you can't hardly read it. And they took all the different alphabets and joined the letters together and made their own alphabet up. That's lost now, so we don't know how they talked and what they spoke. Good question.
Is that where the expression comes from when they call somebody a Philistine, that they're primitives?
You're right.
I don't know, I've heard that expression.
That's an old saying, boy, that's right. The old Philistine. That's right. Any other questions now? Don't be afraid to ask questions. If I don't know, Dr. John's back there. He's got the answer.
When was the last time you were in Israel?
What's that?
When was the last time you were in Israel?
Unfortunately, it was 202. I haven't been back since. That's been, 12 years, I guess, more. My daughter went last year, and the things have changed so much. She said, Dad, it looks like almost like America now. You're losing. Anybody been to Israel before here? You folks have. You know how. Now today, folks, they say that now between Caesarea, they have everything. The theater part is connected with all the part, and the highways now are lined up with light posts. And it destroys the look of the Holy Land. On the road to Nazareth, that big road, and lamp posts all the way now. Everything's looking, and talk about skyscrapers in Jerusalem. They've got those twisted buildings, the fancy twisted buildings. The architects have made. You don't think you're in the Holy Land anymore. Well, the best way to see the Holy Land is go back where the Arabs are if you want to see the Holy Land. Because one, they're still dressed in long garments, the keffiyahs on. They all have the shepherd's sticks. It's beautiful to see that. And sheep and goats. Now, only in Samaria now the buses stop because all the sheep and goats, they give way. And camels, too. Herds of camels sometimes come across. Once you want to have a thrill, you ride a camel sometime. The other question, I've ridden camels several times. Rode one up the top of Mount Sinai and got off and walked the rest of the way up on 1,200 steps of stone to reach the top of Sinai. Think about the Philistines now. They remind me of the ISIS today. They really do. Because these people were killers. They didn't care who they killed whatsoever. But yet again, most of the people back in those days, they did not torture as much as we see the ISIS doing. This cutting off hands and cutting off heads and disembowling people and things of that nature. That's going too far, Any other questions?
The Hebron are the toughest people in the world, you say, or in their day?
You were saying that Hebron was the toughest place right now? The location of Hebron is the toughest?
Oh, yes. Hebron has about 90,000 people today.
Still tough currently, right?
But see, Israel went back there and they showed them we're going to stay there. And so they built a little big section there, and every once there's a fight breaking out there. See, they stabbed the Jews there. It's terrible. They're running up and stabbing Jews now. And boy, it's terrible. That's the only thing you got to watch over there now.
What God did the Philistines believe in? Who did they worship?
Dagon.
Dagon?
D-A-G-O-N. And that was a big statue. It was what they called, it's an anthropoid. Yeah, it had a fish head, dag. That's where fish comes in Hebrew, dag. That's fish and a human body. And if you notice some of those statues in your material, you see some of the coffins were made with a face and some animal body or vice versa. Anthropomorphic, that's what the archaeologists call it, anthropomorphic. When you take a human being and an animal and put them together. Well, look at the giant bulls. The giant bulls that guarded the gates of Babylon. And we've seen those in the British Museum. and so on. Those huge bull, it shows a man's face with a lion's body, and they have a bull's body, a lion's feet, and so on, a tail of an animal. They put all the animals together and so form that thing. See, that's how the heathens worship animals. The planet, the stars and animals, they became parts of the god system of the Egyptians and Babylonians and Syrians and so on. They always had certain stars representing God, but their gods had to have a statue where people could worship. That's why when the Romans went in and burned down, when they burned down the Second Temple in 70 A.D., they walked in there and said, "Where's your God?" There wasn't anything in there but a little prayer table because the ark wasn't there. And they said, "Where is your God?" They thought it was going to be a big gold statue in there like a Buddha or something. "Where's your God?" Because they didn't see the God in there, see? Because Israel don't worship a God like that. That's a good question, you guys. You guys bring up good questions here. You're very thoughtful. Yes,
Speaking of the clay pots, where did they get the clay or the material to make these pots? Was that along the ocean? Or was that...
That's right, along the ocean. That's where the wet sand is, yeah. And a lot of this stuff they imported too. A lot of this pottery came from other parts of the country, and they used the stuff and cracked it and buried it and so on. Most pottery is in pieces, and the archaeologists have to put it together. If I went on a dig, I'd get underneath the tent this time and go ahead and just wash pottery all day. You have to do sometimes with a fine toothbrush, though. That's a good question too, because they did make some of this stuff. Of course, the Babylonians did. They all had their certain types of pottery. The Babylonians got into the Stone Age material, a lot of stone things. Any other questions, John?
The Philistines were called the sea people. Is that because they did a lot of traveling on the Mediterranean?
Yes, they were like the Phoenicians. They were shipbuilders, and they went to sea. And they built, that's a good question too. And they came from the sea too, because see, Egypt had sand all the way around. They had perfect barrier. That's why Egypt became so powerful. The only enemy that would ever come would have to come from the north. And so they came from the sea. And that's why it took the Egyptians off, because they thought nobody would ever come from the sea either. And that's what shocked them. And they moved their boats down. You see the delta comes up like this, spreads like a lily pad. It goes like this here. And there's little tributaries. And so the sea people came in and started coming down with their boats all the way through and killing the Egyptians and so on. Now, right here was Goshen. Now, the Jews were down there in Goshen, too, during that time. They were protected by of course, before they left the land. But that's what they called the sea. They came from the sea. They didn't come to the desert. They come to the sea. So that was something else.
Were the Philistines so important and powerful that they used a lot of the weapons like the swords and stuff that a lot of the people didn't have? Didn't the Jews have to go to the Philistines to have them made or even sharpened or instruments?
I mentioned at the beginning, John, yep, they went down there because they were friendly at first, but then after that, look out. The fighting began because they saw Israel starting to encroach coming towards the sea. When they got to the land, Israel started moving down, taking towns, and wow, they took towns all the way from Beersheba clean up to Dan, But you folks remember when you read your Bible how when Dan, that territory of Philistia, was given to the tribe of Dan, the Danites went down there and wow, did they get a licking. And Dan had to move all the way to the north, way beyond the Sea of Galilee towards Mount Hermon. And that's where the city, and they called the city Laish, the old Philistine city called Laish, L-A-I-S in the Bible, called Laish. That became Dan. So Dan moved out, and Dan became such a ferocious tribe that they started worshiping the Baal up there too. A lot of Jews say the Antichrist is going to come from the tribe of Dan, because Dan's missing, they say, in a place in your New Testament. They said you won't find Dan in Revelation. I found it one time, but they say it's not there because Dan's is going to be a lost tribe. Good question. Well, you folks sound like I'm back in college right now teaching. And that's what students do, the professors down there. You guys, listen, you all pray for our school because, boy, we're excited down there. New students are coming in all the time. And pray for me because I have 2 more places to preach at when I get home.
Hi, my name is John Blair, and I have the privilege of being the pastor here at Coventry Baptist Church in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I want to thank you for choosing to take part in our online services. I sincerely hope they were a blessing to you, and I want to invite you to continue to use them in the weeks yet ahead. In fact, take your time on our website, check it out, let us know what you think about it. Your opinion is very important to us, and we'd like to have some feedback. Let me take this time to also extend an invitation to you. If you don't already have a church home, let me invite you to come to our church and take part in one of our weekly services. Our morning worship service on Sunday is at 10 a.m. Our Sunday night service is at 6 p.m. And our Wednesday services and our midweek service is at 7 o'clock p.m. We're located at 10926 Aboit Center Road. We're right across the street from Homestead High School. Just get on our website. We have a detailed map and some instructions on how to get here. Again, thank you for choosing our website and our services. I pray that the Lord will bless you and keep you. I hope to see you this Sunday.
Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts